So today we're going to do something we haven't done in a little while, which is a agent tier list. And we're going to talk about both their pro play kind of stance and their rank stance as well. Where we'll put them on the tier list will be more to do with pro play, but we definitely will talk about where they are in terms of ranked as well. So we've got all the agents here and our 5 categories, and let's start with the controllers, and we'll start with Astra. And Astra, I think, it's a pretty easy one. I'm just going to put Astra in the okay category. She sees a fair amount of play in pro play, and in ranked, obviously, Astra is not the easiest agent to play, so maybe, her pick rate isn't as high there because she is a bit of a complex agent. But I think she's solidly okay. Okay, next up is Brim, and I'm going to put Brim in the niche pick small buffs category. The reason for that is because Brim more recently, especially in pro play, has seen a bit of a challenge versus Harbor on Bind, and obviously that was kind of Brim's home map. Obviously, again, Brim is kind of the opposite to Astra, where he's quite maybe a simpler agent to play, and so you do have to be a bit careful with buffing those agents because, if you do make them too good, then in ranked they will dominate if they're a simple agent to play. So, I would only be looking at small buffs if they were to do that for Brim. One suggestion I particularly like is the Stim Beacon. Instead of throwing it down, it actually emanates from Brim instead, which might make it easier to, have teammates be affected by the Stim, and it would mean that Brim, always is kind of having that Stim available to him. So, yeah, I think that something like that would be quite nice, or maybe the second Stim Beacon comes back, right? Just something small like that. Okay, next up is Harbor, and this one I was kind of in between putting him in okay or good agent. I'm actually going to put Harbor in the bottom of good agent because, again, I think if you take the time in both pro play and ranked to master Harbor, then you will get quite a bit of success from it, right? Harbor in ranked is not the most common pick, but again, if you've taken that time to learn how to use those walls, you'll find quite a bit of value from using Harbor. And I actually think that the map pool now is kind of anti-Harbor, right? The 2 maps that aren't in the pool, Breeze and Icebox, I think, you could argue that those might even be, Harbor's best maps, right? Those might be maps where you definitely see a lot of Harbor. So although Harbor's pick rate isn't like super, super high overall across all of the maps right now, I think with a different map pool, it actually would be quite high indeed. And I do think that Harbor is just a good agent right now. And especially if you take the time to learn him, in rank that can be the case as well. Okay, Omen, pretty simple one. Again, for both pro play and ranked, sees quite a bit of play and is just pretty good. I'm going to put him ahead of Harbor here in the good agent category. Omen is just good, and I don't think anyone would have any problem with me putting Omen here. And then we have Viper. Now, Viper is an interesting one who just got a nerf, of course, quite recently. So, because of that, I'm going to put Viper at the very top of good. But you could definitely make an argument that Viper is still nerf worthy, that we haven't really seen enough time has passed to see, how much of an impact those changes will have made to Viper, but I'll put her at the top of good for now. Obviously, in ranked and both pro play, Viper is just a very, very good agent. So you could definitely argue she should still be in the nerf-worthy category. We'll leave her a good agent for now, but definitely could be going up as time progresses. And so that's the controllers, where I think, things are in a pretty good state, controllers, all things considered. Now let's move to the initiators, and we'll start with Breach. And Breach is, again, an agent that's an interesting one, because in my stats video, Breach was the lowest ranked agent in terms of non-mirror win rates, in terms of pro play, but I'm going to put him in the okay category. Again, if you know what you're doing with Breach in ranked, you can definitely find success with him in ranked games. And, in pro play, he is still a popular pick on quite a few different maps, despite, not maybe having the highest win rates overall. So I'll put him in okay for now, but, if those win rates do continue to kind of bear out that Breach isn't that good, maybe he does need a small buff. Who knows? Okay, next up is Fade, and Fade, I think, is very much in between the okay and niche pick kind of scenario here. I'll put her at the bottom of okay, but if you wanted to think like, oh, Fade needs a small buff, yeah, I could see that. I think, again, in ranked, she's fine. In pro play, she does see some play on certain maps. So, it's not like, Fade just doesn't exist in the game. But maybe there is a chance that, Fade could use with some kind of small buff to help her out. Moving on to Gecko, and I'm going to put Gecko in the small buffs category. I think that Gecko could just use with some small things. I don't think Gecko needs big things. I think Gecko just needs little tuning things of, maybe Wingman lasts 7 seconds instead of 5, right? Or maybe the Dizzy, shoots the goop faster, a bit faster, right? So that it makes it harder for the opponent to shoot shoot. Little things like that are, you know, where I think Gecko kind of needs to be. And with those buffs, I think that Gecko could be, you know, pretty decent amongst a pretty good Initiator class. Moving on to KO, and normally KO is towards the top of these lists, but I'm going to put him in the OK category. KO has always struggled in ranked, like KO's rank win rate is always towards the bottom of all the agents. Perhaps because he's more difficult to use than, you know, maybe it first seems. And in pro play as well, his win rate wasn't that great in the non-mirror games. He's still doing fine on maps like Ascent, of course, but, you know, across all of the maps, it actually wasn't super high. So, yeah, does KO need a buff? I don't think I'd go that far, but, you know, KO, he's fine. Okay, Skye. Skye is definitely going to be our first nerf-worthy agent. She has a very high pick rate across quite a few different maps in terms of pro play. I think in ranked as well, you know, she's very good in ranked. And I don't think she needs, like, huge mega nerfs. I just think she needs, you know, maybe a bit of tuning. I think the Skydog in particular, because the Sova drone and the Prowlers did get nerfed at different points, I think that that made the Skydog, you know, kind of the best drone, essentially, right? The best droning ability is now the Skydog, and so I could almost see them be that, you know, reducing the Skydog's vision like it was prior before they buffed it, or, you know, how long the dog can run. You know, I think that those kind of things I could definitely see for Skye, you know, just being a small nerf to the dog there. Okay, Sova, I'm going to just put in the good agent category. Sova, you know, is just good on certain maps. I think, again, this is one that's pretty much no-brainer in both ranked, pro play. Sova, pretty good. Now we come to Chamber, though, and the Sentinel class. And Chamber is an interesting one. He did just get buffed, and I made a whole video about how I expect Chamber to become, you know, meta on Bind. I think that that pretty much will happen. And I do think in ranked, you can find value from Chamber on maps like Lotus, on maps like Haven as well. I think there is probably enough good setups, maybe even Ascent also, where, you know, you can find some value from Chamber in ranked games. So maybe Chamber isn't that far away. Maybe Chamber is actually perfectly fine at this moment in time. So he's either at like the bottom of OK or niche pick. Because it's Chamber, I'll put him at the bottom of OK because I don't want to buff Chamber anymore and make him too good. So yeah, we'll just put him at the bottom of OK for now. Now, Cypher is another interesting one where, again, kind of similar, I think, to where Chamber might be. You know, a top of niche picks, maybe some small buffs needed. I think I'm gonna go with Cypher being okay, just for now. Again, towards the bottom of okay. I think, again, in ranked, you can find value from it. And I think, you know, if you take the time to master Cypher, you know, when you look at, like, Nats for Team Liquid, right? You know, even a pro play, you can find a lot of success with Cypher where others maybe don't. And so, yeah, I'm gonna put Cypher in the okay category for now. Okay, now let's move on to the newest agent, Deadlock, and Deadlock needs some changes in multiple ways. One is her avatar is going to change. Someone pointed this out on Twitter, and now I can't unsee it. If you look at every other agent, they all look the same way, and their eyeline is kind of in a similar position as well. And this is why they've been changing like Fade and Harbor and Gecko, because their old ones weren't like that. And so Deadlock is also going to change like that. And, well, there you go. There's a little TMV fun fact of the day for you. But also she needs buffs in the game as well. Now, when it comes to Deadlock, I don't think they should go major buffs, right? I think they definitely should go slow incremental buffs, because the thing is with barrier sentinels like her and Sage, at low ranks in particular, those agents tend to be pretty good, because at low ranks you get a lot more of just, you know, 5 people go A, 5 people go B, and, you know, putting up a barrier and stopping you from going there, you know, and wasting a lot of time is, you know, pretty strong at those lower ranks, right? Sage has always had a very good ranked win rate, particularly at lower ranks. And Deadlock, I think, could be the same if you buffed her too much, right? And so I definitely would like to see some buffs, right? Like the GravNet pulling the thing out needs to be increased. You know, maybe there's a lot of other things you could do as well. You know, I think the sound sensors maybe, you know, need to trigger quicker and stuff like that. You know, little things like that I would kind of gradually introduce to Deadlock to get her into a good spot. Now let's go from one end of the list to the other, where Killjoy needs a nerf. Now, how you nerf Killjoy is a good question. I think there's a couple options you've got. One is maybe nanoswarm damage, right? And just making the nanoswarms do less damage than they currently do. And the other one is the ult size, right? The lockdown actual size. Now that would be a pretty significant nerf, particularly on certain maps, if the the lockdown didn't cover full sites like it does now, or there's like big gaps in it. That might make Killjoy quite a bit worse on certain maps, and so I think that would be a pretty good idea. To introduce maybe something like that, because Killjoy's pick rate in pro play is extremely good. In ranked, Killjoy is very good. So yeah, I feel like Killjoy needs a nerf. Okay, Sage. Sage I'm going to put, I think, at the top of niche pick small buffs. Again, I'm hesitant to say that Sage needs buffs, because again, at low ranks, if you buff Sage too much, then she'll be too good. But maybe just the slightest of buffs. Okay, Jett. There's going to be a lot of pro player Jett 1 tricks who don't like this, but Jett needs a nerf. The Duelist class has always been a problem, and Jett has always been pretty much problem number 1 with the Duelist class, and that has not changed. The nerf that I would give Jett is to take away a Cloudburst. I would give Jett 1 Cloudburst instead of 2, because especially when you watch like the best Jett players in the world, you think of people like Aspas and whatnot, the 2 Cloudbursts almost act as like a second dash, right? They have 1 dash that helps them get away from a fight, but then the 2 Cloudbursts, they'll often get away, from a fight by using both Cloudbursts as well. If you only had 1, that might change, how that works, right? It would be a nerf to both the attacking and defensive side. But I think it might be a good change. I still think Jett would get picked, right? She'd still be the best opping agent, or definitely the best opping duelist in the game. And so, she'd still definitely see a lot of play, but it would be a substantial nerf as well. And I think it's the kind of nerf that, the kind of level of nerf that Jett needs to kind of be brought back down to the rest of the duelist class. Okay, Neon, I think, is about as a solid of a niche pick small buffs agent that you could ever want, to be honest. In both pro and ranked play, I think Neon kind of exists on a similar level where, she's not bad. It's not like you can't ever find value with Neon, but, she could maybe be a little better, and that might help. Okay, Phoenix. I'm gonna put in the big buffs. We need big buffs for Phoenix. The thing is with Phoenix is you just can't have 2 abilities that are below par, and with this many agents in the game, expect to get picked a lot, right? It's just not gonna happen. Now, I don't think Phoenix needs like a complete overhaul. I just mean like, 1, I would like Phoenix's healing on his abilities to look like Reyna's. You know how fast Reyna's healing goes up? I want that for Phoenix, right? Where when it's healing you, it's actually, really healing you, as opposed to what it does right now, which is like, yeah, it heals you a bit. I think that that's one area that they could look at. They could also, do things like making the molly a bit bigger, maybe as well. A bit more of a threat there. To kind of go over bigger areas. That would be quite nice. Something like that. These are kind of buffs that I think Phoenix perhaps needs. Raze, we're going to put in the solidly good agent. Again, both for ranked and pro play. I don't think anyone would have a problem with this. Raze is pretty good. Okay, now we come to Reyna, and you know what? I'm just going to put Reyna in the okay category. In terms of pro play, she's not okay. In terms of ranked, she's probably too good. But this is the world we live in. The game, in my personal opinion, would be better off without Reyna. That's my personal opinion. If you deleted Reyna from the game, it would be a better game. And then finally, we come to Yoru, who, of course, I'm going to put in the buff now, please. When it comes to Yoru, obviously, you can't buff him too much, right? Like, let's say they made the teleport instant, right? Well, then you've just got better old Chamber. And probably the strongest agent that has ever existed in the game, right? So you can't buff Yoru too much because he would become a massive problem. My personal suggestion is maybe you make the ult like a 6-cost ult, right? Would that break the game? No, but it would make Yoru one of those agents where, particularly if ult orbs are available on a map, you could lean into it. Kind of like some teams do with Phoenix at pro play, right? Or in your ranked games as well, where you just farm up ult orbs, you get that Yoru ult over and over and over again, right? And that's kind of the niche, that Yoru now has, right? It's an extra kind of thing that Yoru has. I think that that's kind of the direction I would probably go, because again, it's not something that's going to completely break the game, but it would make Yoru quite a bit better. And that's kind of what we want, right? And so, yeah, that's my overall tier list right now. Interested to hear what you guys think. What agents did I get right? What agents did I get wrong? You'll definitely talk about the ones I got wrong more than the ones I got right. Well, let me know in the comments down below what you think.